don't be so afraid of the flood that you're going to choose to be in drought. He says it's part of this world to have the desires and the lust, but don't try to clamp down on that so much that you dry out, and then your avodah is dry. You have no flow, no connection with the Creator. Parashat Nitzavim is very rich, and it's going to be interesting. So,
winding towards the conclusion of the cycle of reading of the Parshiyos, heading towards Simchas Torah. Nitzavim vayelech azinu zeis bracha all take place on Zion Adar, the day of Moshe Rabbeinu's Petira, his when he's going to pass away. It has two psukim here, which I'm going to just mention them and just tell you the basic pshat, the simple explanation of what they're supposed to mean, so that we have a little bit of a context here.
Foundation.
So, foundation with which we can springboard into the greater heights. So first it says that the Torah is not in heaven. So this is a very strange thing to tell us, but basically it means that once the Torah was given to the Jewish people and there was created a hierarchy, just like in any society, and there are the people who are enjoined to be the leaders of the community, the rabbis, the leaders, the professors, the judges. Once the Torah was given over to human beings, taken out of the realm of angels and the heavenly realms, it becomes up to human beings to determine the halachas, the day-to-day, to decide, to be the judges who decide what the rules are going to be within the framework of the Torah.
That's what's going to prevail.
Right. The point is, it was given to human beings to be a human being-driven document, a living document. The other pasuk we're going to be dealing with is very famous. The Torah is very close to you, in your heart, in your mouth, to do it. Thought, speech, and action. It's very close to you. Now, this might be counterintuitive to many of us. We find it very far away from us, very difficult intellectually, very difficult to incorporate all these mitzvahs and the what's going on philosophically into our minds. We find it difficult, but yet the Torah tells us it's close to you. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's very near.
It's sort of like the popular way that Jewish faith is described as different, as distinct from other faiths. Mostly we're comparing that to Christianity, is that other faiths are trying to raise us up into heaven. The ideal is to rise to heaven, to be like the heavenly bodies, the angels. And Judaism seeks to bring the heaven down to earth, make earth heavenly. So there's a different direction there. And I think this pasuk talks to that.
We have to take ownership of this living document. It's not just set in stone, stuck 3,000 years in the past. It gives us the framework from which we build a rich Jewish life. And that must mean that we as humans are in control of where the document leads us.
We did prepare a source sheet for you. If you would like to follow in English and in Hebrew, follow a text in front of you as you're listening to this shiur. So you go to the Hebrew Learning Circle's website, click on Jewish Resources, and then go down to Parsha Videos. And there you'll see, here's the source sheet right there. And while we're at it, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, share, and like. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 11, 12, 13, and 14. And it goes as follows. כי המצווה הזאת אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, לא נפלאת היא ממך ולא רחוקה היא. Surely this instruction, mitzvah, which I enjoin upon you this day, it's not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. לא BaShamayim Hee, we said, לאמור מי יעלה לנו השמיימה ויקחיה לנו, וישמיענו אותה ונעשנה. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it. ולא מעבר לים היא, לאמור מי יעבור לנו אל עבר הים ויקחיה לנו וישמיענו אותה ונעשנה. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it. And last verse, כי קרוב אליך דבר מאוד בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. No, the thing is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart to observe it. Here's the Izhbitzer. He starts by quoting, לא BaShamayim Hee ולא מעבר לים. It's not in the heaven and not across the sea. והיית בזוהר הקדוש, and it's brought in the Holy Zohar, the Kamam Kamot, in different, a number of places. Kama yikirin milin deoraita. How precious are words of Torah. וזה נראה כמו מעבר לים, and it appears as if it is across the sea, or the distance of an ocean away from us. והיית עוד כמה עילאין milin deoraita. It's also brought how high up, how elevated are the words of Torah. Vehu kmo BaShamayim, as if it was up in the heavens.
Well, he's stating kasha. He's bringing up what might appear to be contradicting our verse. That's his premise. According to the Zohar, he's quoting from the Zohar, and he's saying the Zohar seems to imply that the Torah is a heavenly, awesome, unreachable meiderdik, we would say in Yiddish, meiderdik, like completely out there thing, like way above our pay grade type of a thing. It's like we should be constantly, wow. So he's saying, wait a minute, I get it, what the Zohar is saying, but the Pasuk seems to be telling us, no, take it easy. It's not like that. So that's where he's starting from.
The contradiction between the Zohar and the actual verse in the Chumash, in the Torah. And then he brings a midrash, Ach bi'el zehu al pi te'ita v'tana devei Eliyahu, and it's explained as, according to what's brought in this midrash called Tana devei Eliyahu, Mashal, the melech basar v'dam. This is a parable of a flesh and blood king. שעשה חומה, שעל ידיהם התכנסו לפלטרין גדולים, who built a wall that surrounds a great castle. ועשה פתח צר בחומה, and made a very narrow opening in that wall. ומי שאינו אוהב למלך אינו מייגע עצמו. And a person who does not truly love the king will not bother to enter through that uncomfortable opening. והאוהב דוחק עצמו, שהוא יודע שאחר הצער מיד יבוא לתענוגים. But the person who does love the king will squeeze him or herself through the opening, because he or she knows that after the pain or the trouble of squeezing through a narrow opening, then the reward, then he will come to great pleasure. Tanugim gdolim, it's a great pleasure, to bliss, right? To use a more spiritual language. V'hen kan בעוד שלא השיג דבר תורה, okay, וכן כאן. And so it is here in our case. בעוד שלא השיג דבר תורה, when a person has not yet comprehended a word of Torah or a concept in Torah, kama ilain v'kama yakirin inun. Then the Zohar applies. It is so elevated and so precious. In other words, it's beyond your reach. Uksheba al dvar Torah. But when a person comprehends the words of Torah, when it's I had a professor who used to say when the token hits the bottom, using when it sinks in, when you get it, when finally, I had a professor in college way back when, for those of us who remember payphones, it's like you put the coin in the payphone, there's a gap until you hear it drop to the bottom. And she said, that's how you learn. It's like you take a token in, but it will take some time till, you hear that clunk, like, oh, I get it. So that's how it is when you study Torah. At the beginning, it feels so incomprehensible. But when it clicks, when it hits you and you get it, BaShamayim Hee, then the Torah, then what the Torah says applies. It's not in the heavens. That's how he's reconciling the contradiction between the Zohar and the Torah. Velo me'ever, and BaShamayim is not in the heavens, it's not across the ocean, v'chulei. V'karov elecha beficha, and it's close to you, as he said before, Rebelli, the last verse. It's actually close to you. It's accessible, very accessible.
So he's saying here, it is karov elecha. It is close to you. It's right here. But you've got to do the work,
right?
The spiritual work, the breaking your head, as we say in yeshiva, work, right? To really try to understand what's going on here with the Torah. Like your friend with the story. Really understand what's going on with these stories, with these mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Then, one day, the coin will hit the bottom, and you'll get the dial tone. Hello, there's someone on the other end. That's what he's saying here.
So it seems like it's a paradox, but I think we need to hold that paradox because both are true. In other words, it's both distant and close at the same time. I think that's what the subtlety is here, right? That we're starting to see. It's neither one or the other. You have to embrace both, I think, is where we're going here, right? Al ken, lo amar Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, אלו הדברים רק בסדרה הזאת שהיא אחר סדרה הנון. He says, that is why Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, may his peace be upon him, did not say these words until this very parsha, which is one parsha after parsha number 50. In other words, I think what he's saying, in other words, Moshe Rabbeinu waited 50 parshas from the beginning of the reading of the Torah to actually say this. And that's for a reason. Because it takes a person to sweat through Torah, through all 50 parshot, and only then, after you spend 50 out of the 54, only at this point you can make that claim.
But the 50 is not random. There in the Kabbalah, in the mystical part of Torah, we talk about the 50 levels of wisdom, and there's a whole discussion about whether Moshe Rabbeinu was achieving the highest, the ultimate level of wisdom. But the point here is that now that Moshe Rabbeinu himself has arrived at the destination, and now he gets it. Oh yeah, right. There is a space where it can be considered to be close to you. You can get there. I got there. You can get there too. Now he felt comfortable telling the people, I've been throwing all these 613 mitzvahs at you these 40 years. I'm driving you crazy. And you might think this is like, wow, take it easy. I'm done. I'm overdone. And he got that. And he says, you know what? Now I'm at the space now where I see where it is. It can be close to you.
Yeah.
So don't be overly concerned. You'll get there. Just stick with it.
היינו אף כי צריך האדם לגדרים וסייגים בעוד שלא השיג דבר תורה. Okay, he's going to open up a little more. He says, a person needs a lot of fences and boundaries with Torah as long as a person has not really conceived Torah. So he's kind of explaining now, he's putting, the way I see it, he's putting in context, why are there so many mitzvot that, forbid us to do things, that structure our lives, etc. And he says, well, that is necessary, especially when you haven't yet gotten what the Torah is all about. And he continues, אבל כשהשיג בשלמות, אינו צריך לזה. But when a person comprehends or attains Torah in fullness, then that is no longer necessary. He says, it's not across the ocean. היינו, אין צריך להיות רחוק מכל חמדת עולם הזה, שנקרא ים. He says, that means, why they bring the metaphor of across the ocean? Because a person needs to be, it does not need to be, the Torah doesn't need to be distant from all the pleasures of this world, material world, shenikra yam, which is called the ocean. The yam moreh lete'ava, because ocean symbolizes lustfulness or desire, this worldly desire.
The Izhbitzer was considered to be controversial, even more so than the standard. There was a time when all the Hasidim were considered to be controversial,
right.
amongst the general, population, Lithuanian population. But he even among Hasidim, he was considered to be, to a certain extent. And the reason is not because he wasn't a great tzaddik, not because he didn't have amazing things to say. The reason was because some of the things he says open themselves up to misinterpretation. This is a perfect example, because to untrained eyes and ears, it could almost sound like he's telling you that you can get to a point where you don't need mitzvahs. But he's not saying that in any way, shape, or form. He's saying that at the beginning of one's avoda, of trying to get close to God through the Torah, that we have to pull ourselves far away from where we were. We have to distance ourselves very far away from the things that we might have been involved with before our spiritual awakening.
Let's understand him properly and not rashly come to the conclusion that he's saying that you can drop everything at some point and, be the guru on the top of the mountain that's that nothing applies to him or her in the world, or that kind of thing. We don't. Right. That is not what he's saying. He's saying, in the beginning, one cannot really understand words of Torah or understand Torah, the wisdom of Torah, without abstinence from worldly pleasures. אבל אין זה עיקר, כי עיקר הוא עשייה. But he's saying that is not the goal. So he's saying the goal is not to become an ascetic. The goal is to fulfill the mitzvot, the doing. I'm actually not 100% clear. I think I'm 80% clear about what he means by asiyah, but he's not making it up. He's actually taking it from the last verse that says, "B'ficha b'dvarcha la'asoto." So now he's getting to hang his thesis here on that last word. He says, with all the, whether it's lofty or whether it's earthy, I mean, the point he says is the doing. It's interesting, right? You can only understand Torah through some level of asceticism, some level of abstinence from lust and worldly pleasures. But that is not the goal. The goal is not to get over your lust. The goal is to be able to do what the Torah is telling us to do. And that's what it means when he says those last three words in the last verse. It's within the capacity of your mouth and your heart to do it. And he's focusing here on the word to do it. Hu ikar. כמו שכתוב בתיקונים, I didn't check the תיקונים here, I said it's תיקוני זוהר, ועשתה לי מטעמים כאשר אהבתי. This is, I believe this is Isaac and Esau, right?
So Yitzchak, Isaac says to his son, go make me some of that venison, go hunt me some venison, make me some venison that I love to eat. And of course everyone is wondering, Isaac is a holy man, he's a righteous person. We don't think of him as a fresser, like a normal person that likes to fress a good piece of meat. So what in the world is going on here? So they interpret it as saying that, again, as the Rambam says, they will say we eat the meat to give ourselves the good protein, to make ourselves strong so that we can serve God in this world of action. Yeah. So he's zeroing in on the word va'aseli, make it for me.
Yeah.
He could have said cook it for me. He could have said hunt it for me. But he said do it for me. Right. Like let's take everything in this, let's make a mitzvah out of it.
Yeah. So it's the exercise. In other words, the point here is not satisfying Isaac's lustfulness, although it's contextualized that way. But the point is that Esau has an exercise, a mitzvah, like a commandment. Each has a commandment to honor his father, basically, or whatever. It's about the discipline. It's about and to translate this generally to spiritual work, it's about the spiritual work, not the spiritual loftiness, but the actual work, the actual discipline, the actual program that anchors your spirituality in this world. Like when you started, you said how, the whole idea is to anchor Torah in this world. And I think that's where he's going. So he's basically, I think, he's giving us the same caution or the same warning you just gave us, which is don't focus on the experience exclusively. Don't get caught up in the ecstasy of the experience. Value the practice, value the discipline, value the groundedness of the commitment, of the continuity. I think it connects for me. It connects to focus on the squeezing yourself through the wall and be consistent with that, because otherwise you don't get to the other side. So he's going to cap it off here with a Gemara from Tanit 10. What it says is Tovana velo Yov Shana.
Yeah, so this is in Tainus. They're talking about fast days for different things. So if there wasn't in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, if there wasn't rain for a certain amount of days, they said different prayers, and they had different types of fasting involved. But the point is, the sages said about this whole thing about drought versus flooding, and they they meant it literally, but it's taken as an expression, better a flood than a drought. Not that a flood is good, but better to have too much rain than no rain. Speaking from an arid land. So the point is, he's saying better to get, give yourself a little bit of leeway with your tithes than to starve yourself completely of your desires. Channel them through mitzvahs, but don't cut them off.
He's saying don't be so afraid of the flood that you're going to choose to be in drought. He says, yeah, it's part of this world to have the desires and the lust, but don't try to clamp down on that so much that you dry out, and then your avoda is dry. You have no flow, no connection with the Creator.
So he's basically making two major points. The first point was a simple, reasonable enough. He brings the mashal, the seeming contradiction between the seeming distance, and the closeness of Torah in our lives, and he weighs that. He weighs and basically it gets down to effort and consistency and devotion to one's spiritual growth. But then the Torah is not in Shemayim, and then he gets into a little bit. Well, at first you're going to have to really cut if you want to get there, like Moshe and like a Jewish person could. You're going to have to cut yourself off from physicality to a certain extent at first, but then you sort of have to find a way to ease yourself back in, because the Hamaiso Iker, it says in the Gemara, the main thing in this world, we're in the Olam Ha'asiyah. This is called the world of action. Right. And if you want to be really fully engaged in this world as a Jew, you have to be in the world, like get into the mud, but at the same time have yourself with a suit of mitzvahs and Torah mitzvahs that's going to protect you from being overwhelmed. That you should have an influence on the world should not. And this, of course, is the great balancing act, which is not so easy.
Right. No, I like what you're saying. I mean, I think it's exactly about the balancing. And I really like what you're saying about you should have an influence on the world, not the world have an influence on you. I think that is the big, that's the big challenge, the big calling here. It could have said, Lo BaShamayim Hee, it's not in the heaven, and that would be clear enough. It's. I think he's asking the question: why doesn't it say it's not in the heaven and it's not across the ocean? Why do they have to add across the ocean? Right. This is the. Right. I never thought about it. I mean, poetically, it sounds nice. It's nice to say, the heaven and the ocean, and it's all like really beautiful. My bunny is over the ocean. My bunny is over the. But he makes something of it. He says, well, ocean is he claims is substantive, and that is because in dealing with Torah, there's the whole issue of ocean in the world in the sense of desires, and then he shows us, and I second what you say, the balancing act. You don't want to, you can't toss out desires because Hashem gave us desires too. That is part of the world, but you can't kid yourself that by following your bliss, we like to say, follow my bliss. That follow my bliss is not enough, and then he anchors it in the word la soto. So this is really, it's about the work. It's about the work. It's about the consistency, and about squeezing yourself through that crack in the wall, because there's a wonderful castle, on the other side. So there's Shabbat, and then right after Shabbat there's Rosh Hashanah. And Shabbat is a crack where we, at least according to the Hasidim, but we have a chance to see a little bit beyond that crack. That's what Shabbat is about, according to the mystics, etc. And Rosh Hashanah is the one time in the year too. You get to look into the future, into the next year.
And so I just want to wish all our viewers and listeners a Kesivach Simat Tevil, Shana Tov Mesuka, a good Gebench Dior, a blessed year, full of all material and spiritual things that you need for good. And I wish you all a Shana Tova. And may we be blessed to spend more time together in the upcoming year learning Torah together.
More Torah that's close to us, close to our heart. Yeah. Again, please subscribe and share and like if you really like this. And shalom for now. See you either. Rabbi